Okay, so placebos and the expectation fallacy. So they go hand in hand with each other. It happens in your mind. But a placebo is a substance or treatment that is used, that is like as an actual treatment, but it's a fake. So think of like sugar pills, other practices that are believed to make you feel better. And an expectation, we all know what an expectation is, but expectation is something that goes along the lines of what you want. So let's say if you put Vicks on your chest, you expect to feel better in the morning. You believe in some crazy ritual or like eating bananas that help you make you feel better the next day when you're sick. So these are kind of examples of placebo effects. Now, it gets more into it. Placebos are kind of a good reaction from your mind, and makes you feel better, makes you feel good, makes you feel safe, and these are just one example. This is just one example of it. There are also nocebos, and this is a kind of negative placebo. It's kind of the evil twin sister of the placebo. It makes you feel horrible. You get really anxious and nervous. You feel like throwing up. So let's say if you're nervous for a video presentation, in your mind you're feeling nervous, you're getting sweaty, you don't know what to do with yourself. So these can all happen even with the treatment of the placebo not actually being an actual treatment. There have been studies where in the United States they do a double blinding trial, and this is used when there's a placebo that has to be tested. Now, everyone knows that they're possibly being treated with the placebo, but they don't know if they are exactly. Not even the doctors know if they're administering it, the actual medication, or a placebo. But we have a control group and we have a placebo group, and we look at the difference between the two. The placebo group can experience different things depending on their expectations. So let's say if they're taking a medication specifically supposed to help them for diabetes or cancer or something like that, they might expect to feel anxious, or they might experience nausea or anything like that. So with placebo, not really going to get anything out of it, but they don't know that. So their mind plays a trick on them. So this trick can actually make them feel nauseous, like throwing up. And the researchers will document that, and that becomes something that could or can or cannot be part of the actual medication itself. It goes further into detail with that. But the placebos are used kind of a way to get a real result with fake input. And this happens in animals too, although there aren't many studies on it, and there's not a firm basis for it. But humans and animals work the same way in a kind of learned response for placebos. So learned response and the expectation fallacy in placebos basically means that you're kind of conditioning yourself. So conditioning yourself, you would be, an example would be going to the doctor, you're expecting to feel better. So every time you go to the doctor, you're going to end up feeling better in your mind, and that's something that works for you. So that's a placebo that works for you. In animals, let's say it's going to the vet, and let's say they have a good experience there. They're all happy, tails are wagging, everything goes okay. The next time they go, the same response. So it's kind of a learned response, a learned behavior. So if they see one thing, their body's gonna make them act the same way they did when they were in the situation. If a dog was terrified of going to the vet for the first time, the next time they go, they are going to be nervous. They're going to hate everything that's going on. And this is part of the learned response, which falls under the expectation fallacy, which doesn't necessarily give us a reason for a placebo effect in animals, but it is a start in the research. And I have my bird here. She's gonna show us what kind of learned response is. So she's paralyzed, but some birds have bad experiences with people. So I'll give you a perfect example. Some birds don't like head rubs, so petting them doesn't do anything for them. But most wild animals don't like being pet. Other domesticated animals like dogs or other kind of birds that are used to being pet kind of get this sense of relief. And this was actually used. This example was used in a study that was trying to prove a placebo effect for animals, and it was shown that petting dogs or horses or any other kind of animal actually slows their heart rate down and improves blood flow for them, and this kind of gives them a kind of placebo effect when they go to, like, let's say a stressful environment. They get pet and they're like, okay, I'm gonna be okay. So my bird hates everyone else in the world until you give her a head rub, and that's when she starts to relax and she knows that she's gonna be okay. So this kind of falls in a placebo effect for people and animals. Even with acupuncture, it's shown to have the same effect in humans as an animal would have a head rub. So this is Zuzu. Now you can see she's kind of biting me, but you give her a little head rub, she eventually calms down. And in this way I was able to learn how to groom her, and she knows that she's going to be okay. She's not expecting to feel any harm when I pet her or when I groom her now. Because of the consistent petting and learning to be okay with it, she has the expectation of being okay. So when I go here to rub her beak and when I go to file her beak and everything, she's not going to freak out and try and kill me. So this is kind of an example of a placebo effect in animals. You can see she's enjoying it, so hopefully when she goes to the vet, she's not going to kill everyone in her way. But this is a expectation that she's waiting to feel something good come out of this instead of something very painful or very traumatic as some other birds may experience. Thank you, Susan. Now, other forms of placebo effects in people, there have been studies where there have been new cancer medications that are coming into play, and we need to test the medication against the best one that's out there. So we'll have a control group, and we'll have the medication, we'll have a group having the medication, and we'll have one that believes that they're receiving the medication, but they're actually not. So we tell them the side effects. Let's say a side effect would be losing your hair. People expect that to happen, and for a short period of time, they actually their hair starts thinning, they start losing hair. Well, although it is a sugar pill, they shouldn't be having that. The expectation is so alive in them that they actually believe it. Now this, we don't know why exactly this happens. There has something to do with the mind and body connection, and that's something that I researched. They went really in depth with the mind and body connection, and what that is the mind controls the emotions, the hormones and all the other responses that it sends to the body. And this was actually used in ancient cultures and ancient peoples, that they believed in the mind and body connection so much to actually treat illnesses and diseases and stuff like that. But with the cancer study, they can have they can place what is a learned response and what isn't, and that falls into the expectation of the fallacy. Now, the mind and body connection. So they used, in the research that I did, they used an example of the shamans and medicine people back in the day. They didn't actually have any kind of special powers or anything like that. The reason why people believed in them so much was because they were expecting to feel better. So when they saw that person, they were like, okay, I'm going to get better. So that's what the mind told the body, and they ended up feeling better. And whenever they saw the person, they had such a strong faith and such a strong belief that they were going to get better that it actually became true. And this is for the placebo. This is something good. For the nocebo, people will expect to feel anxious and nauseous and all these other things. So there's also the conditioning effect. And now this is when there are groups of people who are receiving medication, an actual medication, not a placebo, and their body responds to it. Let's say it's a depression medication, and it's working, but for the next prescription, they receive placebos. And now what this does, it conditions the body to have the same reaction it would if it were taking the original pill. Now, this kind of forces it to become a learned response for the mind and the body, but you don't know that you're not giving the actual medication. And in a study that was done, they did this, and when it was receiving the actual medication, the hormone levels or whatever the medication did, the result happened. And then when they had the placebo implemented into it, the body, although it was a slightly smaller amount of what it was supposed to be, what was supposed to happen, it still happened. They still felt okay. Their body didn't realize that they were actually not receiving anything. So this is the conditioning effect that falls under the placebo and expectation fallacy. So it's really just all in our heads. We can make ourselves feel better when we choose to believe it, and if we believe it strong enough. So thank you for listening to me.